one of my questions is already answered by your handout, I see. What your recommendations were for the Healthy Bodega initiative. And I see it's about tobacco advertising. If there is anything else as far as like where fruits and vegetables are placed, I'd be interested in that. But the shuttle for the co-op, I'm interested in who would pay for the shuttle.
That is what's the problem with it. I mean, because in previous studies, the actual farmers market will pay for the shuttle because it brings in revenue, or there's also been previous ones with supermarkets, and they also would fund the shuttle because it brings a lot more business. But SIBS doesn't want to have supporting anything specifically, so it would have to come from an outside, donor, I guess, if that's the problem we had with finding the actual who would fund the shuttle.
I think what you said is important because in all the previous case studies, specifically Ward 8, it becomes kind of a self-sustaining process because for example, Ward 8 paid for the shuttle that they brought in to make this 8-stop loop and then bring people to the farmers market. And because they were making so much profit, because they had such a larger population of people coming to the farmers market, then they were able to amp up the stops that they made. And I'm pretty sure right now, I was just reading something about it, that they're working on implementing an additional shuttle. So it kind of becomes this positive cyclical process.
Right.
So that would be our.
The market grows, there's more vendors, and also the community around it grows because people are brought to the place for free. So they're there's this store that I've never been to. So it starts this whole outward domino effect of profit and healthy food, I guess.
Also, a lot of the grants that I was talking about for the cost-benefit analysis we did for the pop-up co-op surrounds food security. So a lot of the foundations that we contacted for micro grants for the pop-up co-op also just want to ensure food security in general and would also be willing to give grants for the shuttle service since it brings people closer to healthy food. So that could also be part of the pot which they could use.
Did you guys look at how this neighborhood revitalization would change real estate in the area? Because I know that gentrification is a big concern, and you guys mentioned wanting to involve the community early on and not have it be a top-down process. I'm just wondering what kind of impact would this have on maybe pricing people out of the neighborhood?
I can take that. Yeah, so that's definitely one of our biggest concerns. Our goal really is that it's not going to change the sort of physical real estate where people are living. People are still going to live in NYCHA. It would be, though, an economic stimulus for some of these people, especially people who are getting into green jobs or getting interested in this field, or for people who are just getting better food. But yeah, our goal is to stay away from any sort of gentrification. That's pretty much the opposite of what we want to go for. So although they would be getting higher produce, there would be really no gentrification involved because there's no sort of in and out. It's the same residents that have lived there for some of them their whole lives. So yeah, we really tried to avoid any of that.
It's also just not really economically viable for us to start popping up these shops everywhere. We only proposed one store and it would be in this one location. And then we also had, I believe it was 687 Hancock Street with our proposed community garden. So these are small isolated spaces with which the NYCHA community can interact with. So it's not going to be a rampant gentrification of the community, but just kind of smaller scale for the community.
Yeah, and just one more thing. I think that's why we looked specifically, why we analyzed Fresh and the Healthy Bodega Initiative. So one of the issues with Fresh is that it's really beneficial for communities that are higher income. Fresh is really favorable to stores that would be the size of something like Whole Foods, and we don't want to just bring in a Whole Foods that people won't be able to shop at. What we really wanted to do was look at the Healthy Bodega Initiative and look at what that can do. The problem with focusing on programs like Fresh is that they stagnate other potentially maybe smaller but more beneficial programs for a community like Bedstuy. So that's kind of why we analyzed both of those and then went with improving the standards for the Healthy Bodega Initiative.
Yeah, for example, if you were to apply the Fresh initiative to one of the bodegas, it basically entails that all these bodegas need to really do is put lettuce, cheese, and tomatoes on their sandwiches to provide healthy food for the community. So it doesn't really apply to the scale of the Bedstuy community.
So I wonder if you'd say a little about the perhaps the same perspectives of different stakeholders that you were involved with. So I think you said something that SIDS, for example, is against having shuttles to particular stores. You could say something about that. Maybe say something about the relationships between NYCHA and SIDS. Do they see were they equally receptive to these kinds of issues? Other community stakeholders that might be involved that you haven't mentioned?
Well, I think it's important to begin with the fact that as we went throughout the semester, we actually have a list of discarded proposals that we created. And so between the 10 of us, we came up with probably 20 different programs. And every week we had different speakers coming in from different organizations that were related to SIDS or related to Bedstuy in some way. And they would say to us, this is a great idea, but I'm not necessarily certain that this is going to benefit the community, and here's X, Y, and Z. And some of the programs that we had, for example, one of our groups came up with a cool roofing program for NYCHA housing facilities, and we ended up having to bag it because all of the NYCHA facilities have gravel on the roofs, and it became too costly to remove gravel, paint the roof, and go through this process. And there is a little bit, I think, of tension in working with NYCHA because there's so many regulations and it's kind of hard to get things through. So a lot of the programs that we were creating kind of supplement things that are already favorable in the community. NYCHA has greening committees already, so we wanted to work with those committees to kind of implement these programs. And that was something that SIBS was really helpful with, was explaining to us kind of the inner workings and the nooks and crannies of NYCHA and Bedstuy and how we could get things through to really make changes happen. So even though we had discarded proposals, we came up with some things that I think really supplement things that are already happening so we can move forward with those.
It's very admirable that you took pains not to make this come off as a top-down sort of thing. You're very concerned about, being sensitive to the interests of the people who are going to benefit. So 2 questions related to that. One is, did you contact the bodega owners themselves and talk about their needs and their sense of wanting to change or being receptive to these changes? And the other thing is the survey that you conducted. To what extent did you avoid that, that this would be a self-selective sort of process? How did you maintain objectivity in conducting the survey? I take it you didn't give this to everybody. So, just the logistics, or how did you do that? Okay.
I could take the second half. For the survey, yeah, we couldn't really get to a huge sample size. We called it a questionnaire instead of a survey because we didn't want to seem like we had this giant sample size and statistical analysis or anything. But we did target the resident leaders because we thought that they really would have a better sense for what the community has been calling for and what they would need in terms of not only sustainability, but what they need just in general in life. So we really targeted them. We had mostly leaders and then some other just regular residents. We called them over the phone and gave the surveys the questionnaires that way. So there's definitely an element of bias.
How big a group was it?
It was 25, so it was definitely a small sample. But I mean, we have definitely a thorough idea of we had long conversations with them and tried to get into the nitty gritty about what they think the community needs.
Also, we basically, one of the first things we did was, because we don't want it to be a top-down approach, we first looked at the fiscal needs development, or the fiscal needs document, which is like a product of all these townspeople or town meetings, right, in Bedford-Stuyvesant, and they basically expressed their needs, what they want in the community, and that's what we basically based our proposals off of. And then as the semester went along, we just had to shoot some of these proposals down. So.
Yeah, and in respect to the question about the bodegas, if you look in the handout, do you have one?
Yep.
If you look on the second page of the bodega standards, there's an image of the green gourmet bodega. So this is a bodega that worked with Grow NYC to abide by the Fresh Bodega standards, and they have implemented the Healthy Bodega standards that we're talking about. There actually is a population of other bodegas that have done the same thing, and it was difficult to reach them via the phone, but we know they exist. And if we were to follow through with this, I think that it really would be valuable to talk to these people, because there is a population of bodegas that have already taken the step. So we want to look at which bodegas are located in areas where it would be really beneficial for them to take this step, because it really does increase foot traffic and bring in revenue and profit for them if they have this available food. So.
I think that's all the time we have.